Yeah, many thanks to Gavin Cooney from the 42.e for dropping in and giving us the skinny on Roy Keane potentially going to Sunderland and the latest state of play with youngsters in Irish football. They've gone to penalties in Yaoundé in the Africa Cup of Nations semi-final. It finished 0-0 between Cameroon and Senegal. It was an absolutely turgid game, and we'll be lucky to get a winner out of this in the next couple of minutes, but a massive few minutes coming up for the goalkeepers. Swapping continents, heading across the South Atlantic, we're going to South America and talking South American football and how it pertains to the World Cup later on this year with South American football expert Tim Vickery. As always, Tim, pleasure to have you on.
Lovely to be here. I'm feeling somewhat better about my own adopted continent after sitting through 120 minutes of Cameroon against Egypt. You know, God. It's that game that you know right at the start, you kind of fear what's going to happen. And it's exactly that. You know, I worry a little bit for African football, maybe a little bit like South America, perhaps, over the last few years. Has got better at the top. Aren't any ago. That's been a South American football. 20 years now since South America. But better. And Ecuador had their...
We're just having a little bit of problem there with Tim's line. Tim, just hold on there for a second. We'll try and fix your line because there's just a few glitches and jumps and all that kind of thing. So we'll be back on to Tim in a moment. But yeah, they're heading to penalties in the Africa Cup of Nations. And there he is, Gianni Infantino, the man of the moment, the man who wants to see a World Cup every 2 years, is up in the president's box, overseeing things and seeing how things are going to progress over the next while. Egypt under Carlos Queiroz have been a pretty tough watch, Mo Salah regardless. He's just going to sort out where they're going to take these penalties with his opposing number, Ansel Abubakar, who wasn't very complimentary of him, of course, in the lead into this match. But I think we have Tim back there on the line. But as you mentioned there, Tim, like, it hasn't been a good watch. Not just this game. This tournament hasn't really, like, we'll talk South America in a second, but this tournament hasn't really kicked into gear, I don't think, at any point.
Yeah, well, I haven't seen we haven't had access to too much of it yet. But the point I was making is, in years that outside Europe, sized nations have got better. Nations right at the top.
Okay, we'll have to jump in there. Tim's line is being very, very temperamental. I'll tell you what, we'll take a quick break and then we'll come back and try and link up again with Tim Vickery in South America.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch Premier League, Women's Super League, EFL, Scottish Premiership and much more. Live on Sky Sports.
News Talk already gives you your daily fix of news and entertainment. But wouldn't you like a little bit more? More? News Talk Extra is everything you might have missed. Plus, expert tips, podcasts and competitions. All straight to your inbox. Subscribe now at newstalk.com/extra.
We've all heard about the energy crisis and that gas and electricity prices have significantly increased. In fact, the average household could be spending €500 more than last year if they haven't switched to a better deal in over 12 months. The good news is that Bonkers.ie compares all 14 electricity and 8 gas suppliers to find the very best tariff for you, so you can switch to a better deal in just minutes with Bonkers.ie, putting hundreds of euro back in your pocket. It's easy, it's free, it's Bonkers.ie.
Let's celebrate spring at Woodies with 70% off home furniture. Great deals on paint like Dulux Moda, 2.5 litre, 2 for €77. And amazing offers on DIY, like the DeWalt 18-volt Combi Kit, only €139.99. Shop in-store, online or with Click and Collect. Woodies, we're all homemakers. T's and C's and exclusions apply.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. All the football you love in one place. Across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
Yeah, you're very welcome back, and apologies again for the line issues that we had there with Tim just before the break. Tim Vickery does join us to talk about the latest goings on in South American football. Tim, as you mentioned there has been a sense that, you know, South American football and African football is lurching backwards from where it has been in recent years.
Yeah, firstly, apologies for the line. I'm going to claim that the problem is your end because the Global South can only suffer so many defeats. The good news is, looking ahead to the World Cup later on this year, that both Brazil and Argentina are looking very, very strong indeed. Don't write them off because both of them are in it to win it. And Argentina are now, I think it's 29 games unbeaten. Brazil have sailed through this World Cup qualification campaign. Now they know that the battle is the knockout phases against the European sides. But looking at both of them at the moment, I think they're certainly Brazil are stronger, I think, than they were 4 years ago. And Argentina are much, much stronger. It's the best Argentina side, possibly, that Lionel Messi has ever played in.
Wow, considering they reached the World Cup final in 2014, quite a claim, because that side wasn't bad. The 2006 side, I think we'll remember, wasn't bad, despite the fact that they were cut off by Germany in the knockout phase. But they have been impressive the last while. Argentina and Brazil seem to be so far out in front of everybody else in those South American qualifiers. There was a 4-1 victory, or 4-0 victory for Brazil, most recently against Paraguay. They drew in Quito against Ecuador a couple of days before that. But we've seen the resurgence, both in club terms and in the international arena, for Philippe Coutinho over the last couple of weeks. It's been quite incredible. That goal really capped everything off from the other night.
Yes. Now, Brazil's coach, he made a gesture of confidence in Felipe Coutinho, calling him up in November of last year. It was a message to him. We still want you involved. Fix yourself up with the club. And I actually think that was a contributory factor in Coutinho going to Aston Villa. And it's worked already at Aston Villa. He's gone to a place where he's loved. He's a very, very shy young man. He needs that. And we're already seeing the benefits. It was against the Paraguay side, who are admittedly very, very poor. Brazil went for something a little bit bolder. They went for a midfield three with two attacking midfielders. Not perhaps a formation that they'll be using in the knockout stages of the World Cup, with both Felipe Coutinho and Lucas Paquetá of Lyon, who's probably the premier attacking midfielder. But it works very, very well. And the good news for Brazil, there's two pieces of good news. One is they don't look like conceding goals. They've got a collection of goalkeepers and centre-backs who really are very, very impressive. And the other is Neymar was missing from these two games, and it doesn't seem to matter. And that eases the pressure on him, because this will be the World Cup, which is almost a definitive statement of his value as a player for the Brazil national side. And the fact that Vinicius Jr. has exploded as a global star, that Rafinha has slotted into the side so well, that they finally seem to have found a genuine centre-forward in Mateus Cunha of Atletico Madrid, all that helps take the pressure off Neymar. It's no longer Neymar and 10 others. It's Neymar as part of a team.
They do, I'm interested to see that he obviously said that wasn't the regular formation that Tite would go for. What ordinarily, apart from a 4-3-3, would he go for? Because it's a hell of a lot of midfielders to try and accommodate. For instance, Fred didn't start the other night, Bruno Guimaraes didn't start the other night, and they've got Fabinho obviously anchoring things. Would he play for a midfield usually, or how does he usually operate?
You've got to have the two there. Okay. And so the usual first choice two are Casemiro. Fabinho came in for Casemiro the other night. Casemiro and Frege. And people might be surprised with that, but Frege has been excellent for Brazil. And he, in their performance away to Ecuador, which was a very difficult game, he was probably the man of the match. We still don't quite know how the coach is going to fit in Neymar, Vinicius Jr., Rafinha, and the centre-forward. We don't really know. There are still some decisions to be taken. But I think it's a guarantee that central midfield will have Casemiro plus one other. Now, Frege, I think, is in pole position. Bruno Guimaraes has never started for Brazil. He's made two late appearances as a substitute. We will see if the move to Newcastle raises his profile. There is just a possibility of Lucas Paquetá playing there, playing a little bit deeper. But I don't think that the coach trusts him too close to goal. So I think we'll have that shape of a back four, Casemiro and Frege in front of them. After that, we remain to see how he's going to fit in all of this attacking talent.
Is that part of his one of the biggest elements of his job? I guess, seeing his qualification is done and dusted. That keeping everybody happy and keeping a lot of sizable egos happy is a lot to take in, and a lot to try and keep between the rails between now and Qatar. Yes,
but when it's the Brazil national side, it means so much to them that egos can be suppressed. I mean, the classic example of that is Romario in the 1994 World Cup. He was very, very difficult to cope with on any sustained basis. He knew, look, just behave yourself for 1 month and you will never have to buy another drink again. And they roomed him with Dunga during that tournament, and it worked to perfection. It's not going to be easy to accommodate everyone. FIFA won't let Brazil select 12, which would seem to be the ideal solution to the problem. It's going to have to be 11. But there's always a chance between now and then of injuries and loss of form and so on. Far better to have an excess of option than the opposite.
On the flip side of that, Argentina, as you mentioned, you said they've probably got the best squads available to them since Leo Messi has been on the international scene. What makes them so good at the moment? Why have things clicked so well over the past few qualifiers?
Yeah, maybe they're not quite as good perhaps as 2006 when Messi, of course, didn't get off the bench in that quarter-final against Germany when they went out on penalties. But there's a few things. One is that they've got a ball-playing midfield, and the main three there are Paredes of Paris Saint-Germain to anchor, De Paul of Atletico Madrid, and Lo Celso, who's just left Tottenham after doing nothing there, but has been exceptional for Argentina. And it means that they're circulating the ball very well, and they're giving Messi possession in areas of the field where he can cause danger. And it was the case that Messi was having to drop deep to pick up the ball, and plan A was give the ball to Messi and hope. Plan B was also give the ball to Messi and hope. Now they've got that circulation of the ball in midfield, and they're all firing together. Di Maria has come back into the side very well. They've got a centre-forward, Lautaro Martinez, who is excellent. But equally important, goalkeeper has been a problem position for Argentina for a long, long time. Emiliano Martinez of Aston Villa stepped into the team in June and immediately made the position his. He's been superb. He's spread confidence throughout the defensive line where, although he didn't play in these two games because he's not 100%, Christian Romero of Tottenham looks like the best centre-back they've had for a while. And it was really good for Argentina in these two games that they've just played that they defended pretty well without Romero, and in the second game at home to Colombia, without Romero or the other first-choice centre-back, who's Otamendi. It's probably an area of the team where you still have doubts, but look at the numbers. The last 8 World Cup qualifiers, I think they've conceded 1 goal. So solid defence, midfield that is circulating the ball well and giving the ball to Messi where he can do damage, and a centre-forward who's scoring goals.
It's a nice combination, a nice position to be in. The transfer deadline obviously passed over here, and in England during the course of last week, it was dominated a lot by South American players being on the move. A couple of the headline ones, obviously, Luis Diaz to Liverpool. A lot of Liverpool fans might be slightly curious as to what kind of player they're after shelling out 40 to 60 million, depending on who you believe, for Luis Diaz. What can you kind of give us in terms of insight for him?
Well, it's a lot of money, even if it's the lower of those two figures. But what he is, and you would see him ideally in that Liverpool front three, you would see him as Mané. He's right-footed, but likes to attack from wide on the left, cutting in, strong in possession, is maybe a scorer of great goals rather than a great goal scorer. I mean, he's been having a nightmare with the Colombian national team. He's the last player to score for Colombia. The problem is that was 8 games away. The last 7, he's played them all, and they haven't managed to find a goal. But I think the good thing from a Liverpool point of view is that they don't need him right now. They don't have to throw him into the deep end. I think Klopp will do work with him on the training ground. He's going to have to up the rhythm a little bit. He's going to have to work out how to fit into Liverpool's system. But he's a player, I think, with a lot to offer. Strong on the ball, scores goals, quick, difficult to dispossess. And I've always seen him, really. I think Liverpool have had their eye on him for a while as a natural member of Liverpool's front three.
Yeah. The other one that might have caught people's eye, but we're not actually going to see him in terms of the Premier League until next season, is Julian Alvarez from River Plate. There's a lot of excitement and a lot of buzz about him in particular, Tim, I believe.
Yeah, and so there should be. I think he's the best thing to come out of Argentina in a while. He is not a Sergio Aguero replacement. He's not a penalty box figure. He's a striker, yes, but he's a striker, if you like, with the soul of a midfielder, which I think makes him especially attractive to Pep Guardiola. He's a combination player. He's a player wonderful at keeping possession, at receiving the ball on the half turn, at giving the quick pass, moving into position. He's quick enough, but he thinks quicker than he moves. He's going to have to up the rhythm of his game as well. It's going to be a shock to him. But he's someone who is so talented and so intelligent that you really see him as a player who's going to give a lot of joy to Man City fans. He's been brought along very gently by River Plate and by their coach Marcelo Gallardo, and he played off the bench in that Libertadores when River Plate beat Boca Juniors all the way back in 2018. So they brought him along slowly. It's only in the last 9 months or so that he's really exploded as the most important member of the attack there. But River Plate, they want to keep him not only until the middle of the season, until the World Cup if they can. And they're quite confident that they'll be able to keep him for the whole year, that they'll be able to do a deal there with Man City where they can keep him right to the end of the Copa Libertadores, South America's Champions League. So it's one to be excited about, I think, for Man City fans, but not quite yet.
Yeah, it seems that they've got him for a snip as well. I think it was like 16 million was the figure was quoted. So it seems that the prices being garnered by South American clubs seems to be dipping as well over the last couple of years.
Yeah, the exchange rate is very favourable for the Argentine clubs. That money goes a long, long way in Argentina. But that's also the premium you get for buying from South America. Because there's always that risk factor. Is he going to be able to adapt to European football? And that obviously drives the price a little bit lower. What's different, I think, about Alvarez, about this case, is that he's just turned, earlier this week, he turned 22. The European clubs, they're looking at 18, 19, 20-year-olds. They want to get them over as early as possible. River Plate haven't allowed that to happen, Alvarez. They've kept him. They've kept him for longer. And it means that he moves over as an established star. He's already the best player in domestic Argentine football. We will see if he pays a price for coming over that little bit later, if the adaptation is a little bit harder. But he does come across with the confidence of being the best thing in domestic Argentine football.
Something to look forward to, and it seems the tide is certainly in terms of Argentine football at the moment. Tim Vickery, it's always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
My pleasure, thank you.
Cheers to Tim. We'll be wrapping things up after this.